friends, Rebecca here, the Dragon Librarian from Farmington Community Library, and Elle and I are here today to talk to you about a couple books that we're really excited about. We're totally hyped to share them with you, and that is because, well, part of the reason because we are still talking about our favorite books that we read back in 2023. So we talked about, in the preceding weeks, we talked about my favorite top 5 books and then the runners-up for top 5 fiction. And this week, we are actually going to talk about one of my favorite genres, which is mystery and thrillers. I know, it's very exciting. So mysteries and thrillers are ones that I recently have started to think about as a favorite genre. So within the past year or two, I've been reading a lot more of them, and I love them. They're so much fun. And I was realizing at the end of the year that I had a bunch that I thought of that were my favorites, but I didn't want them to take the place of any of the fiction books on my list too. So I decided we're going to do a completely new segment, which is just rating the top 5 thrillers and mysteries. So some of them delve into the mystery and thriller genre. They're really more thrillers than anything else, but they have mysteries in them, so I'm just categorizing them as both. And I'm really excited about them. I think that you guys are going to be too, whether they're books that you have heard of before or maybe they're ones you haven't heard of. Either way, I'm hoping that you will come out of this feeling super excited to maybe check some of these books out. And again, if there are books on this list when you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you didn't mention this book, or wow, yeah, I thought that book was really good too, let me know in the comments. I really want to hear about some of your favorite thrillers and mysteries. Maybe there are some that I haven't read that I would absolutely love to try this year. So at number 5, we're going to go with Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. Now, this one is, I don't want to say it's a cheat because technically it's labeled as horror. But this one in particular, I've read a lot of Catriona Ward's books, probably most of her backlog of books. And this one in particular, I felt like read much more like a thriller and a mystery than an actual horror book. So I'm including it on this list, even though technically the genre it's in is horror. So most of her other books are definitely horror. If you've read anything by her before, she is absolutely phenomenal as a writer. She's so good at just making you gasp out loud and trying to figure out what is going on in this book. So this book takes place in Maine, and the main character's name is Wilder, and he is at the end of his, he's writing this book, and he's an elderly man. I don't want to say at the end of his life, but he is elderly. And he's recounting the story of when he spent time in the same setting, in the same Maine coastal town back when he was younger. And he's writing about this murderer, this serial killer that had the whole town basically just up in arms and terrified, and all of the events that happened that summer. But as he's writing this story, the things he's remembering about what happened then are starting to change a little bit. And he's starting to wonder if he can trust his own memory about what happened. And there are also other things that are happening around him that seem to be tied to what happened back then, but also can't even be existing. There are notes that are appearing out of nowhere. There's all these noises, and he's seeing these faces of people that he knows are no longer here. And he's trying to, as he's writing the story, recount exactly what happened back when he was a young person in this village. So what I loved about this is such a twisty, convoluted tale. And I don't say convoluted in a bad way. There are so many things going on in this book that you just have to try to piece them all together. And of course, you're getting multiple points of view. So you're getting the point of view that is currently him writing the story, but then you're also experiencing his flashbacks and what was happening when he was younger on the island. And there are all kinds of mysteries and clues. And I'm telling you, when all this stuff starts to come together, I had to put the book down and I was just staring off in the distance for a couple minutes because I could not believe how wild this story got. It is absolutely incredible. And there's all kinds of other really interesting little tidbits here. Like, for example, throughout the story, on these random pages, in between chapters, there are these words, okay? These random words. So, for example, this one says, heat, hat, what? Here, where? Ham, am, hit, high, is I. And every so often throughout the book, you've come across things like this. And they don't make any sense, and you have no idea what they're doing there. And even the most minuscule thing, I'm telling you right now, will make sense in the end, and everything ties together. I just want to read this book again, actually. Now that I'm talking about it, it's absolutely phenomenal. Highly recommend it. And like I said, it is technically categorized as horror, but it's definitely more of a thriller, in my opinion. So if you are a person that shies away from horror and you're more interested in a mystery / thriller, check this out. Looking Glass Sound, Catriona Ward. Oh, I'm telling you, I think I might reread this book again before I turn it back into the library. Okay. So the next one I want to talk about, you're probably going to think it's because I'm biased, and you may be right up to a point. Holly by Stephen King. So as you have been able to see behind me, I have an entire shelf. Actually, it's an entire bookcase. These lower shelves also are all Stephen King books as well. I love Mr. King. I love everything about him. He's a phenomenal person and a writer. So you're thinking, of course, he came out with a new book this year. Of course, Rebecca is going to put this on her list of top 5. But just wait. Yes, he's one of my favorite contemporary authors. I love everything that he's done, especially recently. Some of his earlier books I'm not a fan of, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about this book. And a lot of people think of Stephen King and they immediately associate him with vampires and, supernatural horrors and stuff like that. And you would be right, because he has written a lot of books like that. In fact, he made his name writing books like that. But he also is just a master at suspense, and he is a master at thrills. And he writes also about the human face of evil, not just the supernatural one. And this book is definitely one of those. So it's called Holly because it features a character that has appeared in some of Stephen King's other works, Holly Gibney. Now, that comes up with another question. Do you have to read some of the other books that contain this character to read and enjoy this book? Yes and no. So no, technically you don't have to. It's anything that is really important about Holly's backstory is talked about enough in this book that you will get what's going on and you don't have to have a lot of background knowledge about it. She appeared in the Bill Hodges trilogy, and she appeared in The Outsider, and she also appeared in a short fiction series where he wrote a few novellas called If It Bleeds. And the title story of that, If It Bleeds, is the story that contains her. So there are a few different things where this character appears. You technically do not have to have read any of those previous works to love this book. Now, that being said, the character of Holly is a fan favorite. People who have read his works love this character. A lot of the reason of that is because she has grown so much from when we first saw her to now. So when we first meet Holly Gibney, she is a very, shy is not the right word for it. She's very antisocial. She has trouble talking and relating to people. She definitely is on the spectrum. She's definitely on the autism spectrum, and she's scared of everything. She can barely do anything on her own. When we meet her in this book, years now later, she is running her own detective agency. And the process of how she got here from back in the beginning is amazing. And I can't sum it all up in a single video like this. So no, you don't have to read anything previous to this to understand this book or love it. But if you really want to get the full depth of this character, I would recommend doing that. That being said, this book, like I said, Holly runs her own private eye industry, basically, where she is investigating things. So she's investigating the case of this missing girl, this missing young woman who the mother is frantic and doesn't know what happened to her. The police are not really doing much about it. So this woman has enlisted Holly's help to try to track down what is going on with her daughter. So let me just lay this little scenario out for you. So say you're, a young woman or whatever age woman, or even a man, going for a run at night or even during the day. It doesn't have to be at night. You're going for a run. You're always cognizant about the dangers of the world around you, right? Stranger danger and whatnot. But you come across an old couple, an elderly couple, one of which is in a wheelchair. And they ask you for help because something has happened to the wheelchair and they need help getting it back into their van. They're just an old couple, right? An old man and a woman. There can't be anything wrong with them. There's surely no danger in helping them out. Is there? I don't know. You may have to read this book to find out. Basically, there is an elderly couple in this book that are serial killers, right? You find out right from the beginning, so that's not really a spoiler. And how they go about it is just this deep, dark path. And this book is incredible because you're racing against the clock with Holly while she gets further and further into this case and into danger, and you're wondering if she is going to be the next victim. So if you are interested in books about thrills and serial killers and the human face of evil, I love this book so much. I couldn't put it down, not just because I'm a huge Stephen King fan, but because it was just a thrill ride that I could not stop. I needed to know what happened next. Holly by Stephen King. Whew. Okay. I sure do love me some Stephen King. All right. The third book, The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. Now, this is a book I got from the Book of the Month Club. I didn't know anything about it. I've never read anything by Megan Miranda before. I got it because it was a thriller and it was interesting. And the main reason I was drawn to it, honestly, was because it's set in the Outer Banks, North Carolina. And I used to vacation there all the time. And I love the Outer Banks. It's a fantastic place. And anytime there's a book set at the Outer Banks, I get really excited and want to read it. So I was drawn into this book. I had no idea I was going to love it as much as I did. But oh man, this book just took me by complete surprise. I love it. I love it. I love it. So basically, this is the story of a group of survivors who, when they were teenagers in high school, they were on a school trip. And there was a catastrophic accident, and only 9 of them survived it. The year after that, one of the survivors took her own life. So after that, they decided every year on the anniversary of this accident, they're going to get together and spend that time together. And, maybe not recounting what happened, obviously, but just touching base with each other and letting each other know that they're there for them and that, basically to just reaffirm, hey, we're still alive. We made it. We're here. And this is what they've done every year since the accident and then the subsequent suicide of the other survivor. So fast forward quite a few years. Everybody's an adult now. They meet for this weekend at this house in the Outer Banks that they always rent. But something is very, very different this year. Our main character, one of the survivors, has noticed that a lot of the other people she's there with are acting really shady. There seems to be something going on that she's not aware of. And on top of that, a huge storm is coming. Now, if you don't know anything about the Outer Banks, they deal with a lot of hurricane-like storms down there. Lots of wind, lots of rain, lots of flooding. And when that happens, a lot of times you cannot get out. So you are stuck where you are. You can't access a lot of the roads because they're very narrow and very isolated. So just think of being stuck in this isolated place with a group of people who you felt like you could trust prior to this. But now that you're remembering a lot of what happened back then, you're realizing that there are a lot more secrets than you originally knew. Now, the thing that really blew me away with this book, and it is something that I find a lot of thrillers, particularly domestic thrillers, are doing now, is they give you a really big twist, and then you're hit with another one not too far after that. So I feel like Gone Girl was really the culmination of the beginning of the thriller popularity and the domestic thriller in particular. And after Gone Girl, a lot of these thrillers are now coming out. And what is a good way to make your book relevant? Not just having one twist, but having multiple twists. And while that might seem like, oh, that must be really exhausting, it's not. Because when I hit the main twist in this, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. I wasn't expecting that. And then I had whiplash because not too long after that, I was hit with another one. And then another one. And then another one before the book even ended. This book is a nonstop thrill ride. The twists never end. They are incredible. I had no idea what was going on. And another thing that's really interesting about this one is that it you get the points of view of all of the different characters. So you have the main character who's telling the story, Cassidy, but then as you're getting her flashbacks, you're also getting flashbacks of the same incident, but from each of the other survivors' points of view, right? Because the story can be one story, but it changes whoever's telling it, right? So that's the same thing with this. So you get all these different points of view. Oh, the thrills, like I said, they just don't stop in this. And it's fantastic. Completely took me by surprise. Was not expecting to love it as much as I did. The Only Survivors. All right, we're down to the wire. We're down to the top 2, right? This was really, really hard to try to narrow down because all of them that I read, like I said, were really, really good. But this is another one that I was not expecting to love as much as I did. And it took me by surprise. A lot of people online were talking about it and reading it. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I did. And I loved it. My Murder by Katie Williams. So this is a book I was on hold for at the library for forever. And then when I finally got it, I was about halfway through and I was like, I have to order this book. So I ordered it as one of my book of the month books after that because I needed to own it. It's so, so good. So the main character on this is just a regular woman, housewife, not housewife, but she's a wife, she's a mother. She's got her, her friends, she's got her own life. But the very big difference with this main character, once the story starts, is that you find out that she's been recently murdered. Excuse me, what? She's been recently murdered. Now, this book has a little bit of a sci-fi twist to it because there is this government-funded program in this book that is able to bring people back to life if they have different circumstances. So this trial run that they're doing, they brought back a series of women that were murdered and put them back into their own lives again. So Lou, this is the name of the main character, is Lou, and she is trying to, because she doesn't have any memory of what happened, but she knows that something isn't right because even though her life has been returned to her, she doesn't feel like everything is as it should be. And she doesn't know who killed her. She doesn't know who to trust in her life. Is the killer still somebody close to her? And as she is meeting with some of these other survivors, she's finding that they are feeling the same way. So you have these characters, as main character Lou, who is trying to not only solve this murder mystery, but it's her own murder mystery. Have you ever read a book like that where the main character is literally trying to solve her own murder? It's crazy. What a crazy, crazy idea. It's so incredible. And the end will blow you away. I promise you will not see that end coming. Highly, highly recommend it. My Murder. All right, we are down to my number 1 favorite thriller of 2023 that I read back in 2023. And if you know me and you know some of the authors I love, you are probably not going to be surprised by this choice, which is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Now you know, or maybe you don't, Riley Sager is one of my favorite thriller authors. Whenever he comes out with a new book, I am just elated because I know I'm in for a treat. And I say every year with each book that comes out, this is my favorite one. This is the best one he's written. I do it every year. And it's true because each book, I swear, gets better and better. And this one is a prime example of that. This is his most recent book. It came out last summer. It's incredible. And it's another one of those books that just keeps throwing the twists at you. The twists and the turns, once they start hitting, they do not stop until the end of the story. So this is another one that is like a dual point of view, and it's another one that is like a time point of view. So you have the point of view of this woman named Lenora, who back in the 20s was accused of murdering her whole family. Her whole family, parents and sister, were found dead one night in their isolated manor. She was the only one that survived. She was never convicted of the crime, but everybody pretty much knows that she did it, right? So now fast forward to we're in the 80s, to the present time, which is the 80s, and there is a new caretaker looking after Lenore. Her name is Kit. And then this part of the story is told from Kit's point of view. And basically, Kit is looking after Lenora, who is basically, she's can't do much. She's wheelchair bound. She can't move around much. She's never really talked about what happened that night. Well, she wants to confide in Kit. She tells Kit, I'm ready to tell my story. So she is telling Kit her story and wants Kit to write it out. She's typing it out. But as this is happening, Kit is starting to wonder whether Lenore is telling the truth and what actually happened that night that her whole family died. And also, why did Lenore pick Kit to tell her story to? Is there something in Kit's past that is bringing this on? So you don't know who to trust. You don't know who to believe. You've got two dual timelines. You've got the timeline of the 80s, which is Kit telling, you know, the story as she's writing down what Lenore is telling her. And then you have Lenore's memories from back in the 20s. And like I said, the twists just keep coming with this one and don't stop till the end. It is incredible. If you haven't read anything by Riley Sager yet and you love thrillers, please, please, please give him a shot. Particularly this one. This is his best one. I know I say it every time he comes out with a new book, but this is his best one, I promise. But all of his previous works I love. He's a phenomenal writer. He's just absolutely incredible. You can't miss him out. And this in particular, the only one left. Lots of twists. So that's what we've got for you guys today. I hope that these books sound really exciting and interesting, and hopefully they're ones that you want to try if you haven't already. And like I said, if there's some thrillers or mysteries that you read this year, or this past year rather, that you think should have been on this list, tell me about them. I want to talk to you about these books, right? And next week we will be talking about my favorite fantasy and sci-fi books that I read in 2023. That will be the last of these videos of the best of for 2023, so I'm really excited about that. And again, all of these books are available at Farmington Community Library, so please feel free to come in and check them out. And thank you so much for watching, friends. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.